positive trend that we're going to stabilize our fund balance. But after looking at the preliminary budget that's presented to the Board of Education today, it looks like there is some decrease in the fund balance occurring. So there needs to be, I hope there's clarity on why that is the case and what are the impacts. I do understand that COVID is a huge deal, but we also need to figure out at the same time, how can we take advantage of COVID and make it a positive situation for our district academically, so that we can continue to ensure and build upon our student success. And that's all that I have to share with you guys tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, First Lady. Next, we have Clifford Gray.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the board for allowing me to speak today. I got 2 minutes, so let me hustle and get it all in. First of all, I want to thank all the family members and students of the class of 2020. I forgot to do that a month ago. To the Ruskin High School graduates, we do see you all. I just want to let that be out known. Also for the board, I want to know, since the Black Lives Matter issue, which occurred in Minnesota, and also the Ruskin student who was killed last Saturday, what is the district going to do in addressing these issues for our students in the opening of schools? I was offer some suggestions, maybe open discussion, maybe some panels. Also, I do know that Katie Rowe has supposed to stay in contact with all our students. So I'm hoping that you guys will follow up on that. We all know that all lives matter. It's not only Black. We also need to look at the Black on Black crimes also in our areas. Also, whether if it's a student, teacher, or if there's a significant other, we also need to please, let's send the board, let's send a card. If we can't send flowers, make sure that we get some cards with these people's funerals or wherever they might be. That just lets this whole community, your teachers, your staff, that lets them know that you appreciate them. Moving right along. I'll give it to you. Take that off my menu. The grass. For years, the curb appearance of our district is horrible. You guys need to fire the people who you guys had that contract with. The curb appearance is sickening. And it's a shame that our students have to go and look at this and look at our ground, and it's pitiful. Also, the word is that Mr. Howard was fired. I don't know how this is getting out. I don't know what this is supposed to be, but I know that the Board of Education accepted his resignation. Therefore, that all process against Mr. Howard should have ceased. That means that he should not get any type of, oh, I can't say that, that's right. 20 seconds. Lastly, how can the community get involved with this bond? Because there hasn't been a lot of stuff spoken about it. So whatever we need to do, how can the community get involved?
Okay, for new business, Ms. Wilson is going to join via Zoom for the preliminary budget. And I do want to again stress that this is the preliminary budget. Again, it's subject to change by the time we adopt the actual budget next month. I will let her go into a little bit more detail with that as she explains.
Good evening. Donna, can I get you to open the PowerPoint for me for the budget, the preliminary budget? It's the PDF. Thank you. Can you tab? There we go. So I want to preface this by saying that I looked at the numbers. DESE sent out some guidelines. They didn't really say how much was going to be cut. They gave us different scenarios.
Wonderful. Just for a second, Shelley.
Oh, sorry.
The board is unable to see what you're what you're, we don't have a visual demonstration. What she's speaking from.
She's opening it, but the problem is we don't have a.
I'm not on the screen. I can't. Yeah.
All right, we have it on display. Michelle, you ready?
Okay. Let me get back. Okay, but I want to preface this by saying that DESI put out very minimal guidelines on what some of the scenarios could look like, giving us a 25 million decrease in revenue, a 50, 75, 100, 125, and gave us percentages that went along with that. So this budget is based on worst case scenario given to us by DESI at this time. So preface that by saying, and then this can change as the year goes on. This is just the preliminary budget that needs to be approved so we can spend July 1. So this is our state and local funds. So you can stay there on that screen, please. So our beginning fund balance is where we're projecting to end or the 1920 school year is at 9,000,001. I've built revenues for state and local funds of 62,000,004, expenditures of 62,000,001, and then we would do a capital transfer from general fund to cover capital expenses not covered by revenue of 1.8, and an ending fund balance of 7.5 for state and local, which is a 12.16 just on the state and local funds. Next screen.
So you're saying this is the worst case scenario?
Yes, based on what was the guidance that was sent out by DESI. So it's looking at $125 million loss in revenue for the state. If you can scroll to the next screen, please. This is the breakdown of the state and local revenues and how I receive the money. You'll see the first one is the local taxes, the current and delinquent, and this is based on the assessed value from 2019. Our Proposition C, it went down 1.6 million from 1920, and so we're budgeted at 4.6. Replacement taxes of 650, financial institution taxes at 500,000, pilots payment in lieu of taxes at 250,000, county revenue at 1.2, and then other local revenue of 1.7 for a total of local sources of 36,000,009. And that's 52% of the state and local revenues. Next screen. This is the state. So you'll see the basic formula calculation is now at 27 million. When I had originally done this, we were at 27,000,009. So I pulled out about $870,000. Transportation is at $1 million. Classroom trust also was a decrease of 162,000 based on new numbers. So I'm setting at 1.9 for that. Other state revenues are at 3.3. This includes ECSC and other small grants that we have. So our total state sources is 33,000,003, which is 47.4% of our state and local revenue. And our total local and state revenues with the beginning fund balance is sitting at 79,000,003. Next screen, please. Thank you. These are the expenditures that have been built for against the state and local. So salaries are sitting at 33,000,006. Benefits are sitting at 13.4. Services are 11,000,006. Supplies are at 3.3. Capital is sitting at 3.7. And debt is at 3.6 for a total state and local expenditures of 69,000,006. Last year, 1920, we were at 69,000,004. Next screen, please. Our federal revenues and expenditures. We receive different federal programs. My projected beginning fund balance is 2.8 million. Medicaid, we receive about 344,000. Right now, the budget is 258. Of revenue with the expenditure sitting at 208. That additional 50,000 is from expenses spent in 1920 that we're expecting revenue in the 2021 school year. So you'll see that historically down, that revenues are higher than the expenditures here. IDEA is budgeted at 2 million in revenue and 1.7 in expenditures. Title is at 3.5, at 3.3 in expenditures. Title is at 455,000, 440 in expenditures. Title is at 24,004 at 21,209 in expenditures. Title IV is at 310 and 265 in expenditures. The CARES Act that we still have remaining out of the CARES Act fund, which is 25% that we were not eligible to claim yet, is 739,000. So that's something we will be able to claim in the 2021 school year. So right now I have no expenditures against that because I'll be doing journal entries and moving the funds into the account. So beginning fund balance, again, is at 2.8. We receive ROTC reimbursement for our ROTC instructors. That revenue is built at 95.7 and expenditures are at 189. Service, right now our revenues are at 4.3 and expenditures are at 5 million. I did decrease the food service revenue by about 400,000 based on information that was provided by Grennan Sims, our director of food service. So I'm looking at an ending fund balance of 3.3 in our federal revenues and expenditures. Next screen. These are our enrollment trends over the past 7 years. So you'll see that we've lost, without our pre-K, 1,044 students, and with pre-K, we've lost 1,068. Our projected expenditures per ADA, which is average daily attendance, is $13,206 right now. That's based on the budget. So that number should change once we have actuals. Next screen. So our funding based on enrollment. So you'll see that we have lost in the past 2 years about $2.7 million. Now that 1.5 includes the decrease of the 88 students that you saw earlier on the previous screen, plus the addition of what Desi is saying our cut would be of that $870,000. So that is that 1.575. Now that is projected and will change based on information that comes further. Next screen, please. This is the outstanding debt that we have at this time. You'll see we have 3 outstanding general obligation bonds. The 2011, we're making a $2.4 million principal payment on it this year. The 2016, which is a refunding of the 2008 bond, and the 2016A, which is the bond, the 19 million we went out for in 2016. So at this time we owe 37 million. After the principal payment of 2.4, we'll owe 34,780. The next lines are the interest that tie with those bonds. And then the tax levy is where we are at right now. This is the 1920 tax levy and is what has been used to figure the 2021. So you'll see the general fund at 4.47, the debt service at 1.1 for a total tax levy of 5.5784. Our estimated bonding capacity based on our numbers is at $38 million. Okay, next screen. These are some of the highlights from the budget. So there was a step increase included of 576,000, and that was included in the preliminary budget that you saw last year. So our 1920, then my projections, the 3-year projection, that number was included in that. An increase for the additions of steps for the teacher salary chart of 103,000 is included. An increase for the hourly rate change for the police officers of 27,216 is also included. An increase of $38,532 for the hourly nutrition staff to meet the federal minimum wage, and increase of $12,938 to change the salary chart to 20 steps, where it's sitting at 13 steps right now. Next screen. There was a 1.5% base increase of 2,812 for the parent educator salary chart. A decrease of 428,000 for the change to the 3-tier bus routes. An increase of 671,825 for health insurance premiums and the runoff insurance claims to the self-insurance pool. A decrease of the 1.575 to the basic formula for a decrease in enrollment, and the COVID-19. The decrease included this decrease was included in the 3-year projection, and this may change as a 39% increase was made by the governor in June. So, next screen. The 2019 assessed values were used to project the current and delinquent tax revenue. A decrease of 162,324 in the classroom trust fund. And we did not receive classroom trust fund in April or May. There's a decrease of 1.6 million in Proposition C due to the amount per WADA. And my assumption is that is based on COVID, as Prop C is based on gambling revenue. That may change as well. The remaining 25% of the CARES Act revenue in the amount of 739,104 has also been included. So next screen, please. And then this is the 3-year projection. So you'll see right now the preliminary budget. And again, this is worst case scenario. We're sitting at a 14.86 at the end of the 2021 school year. Now, in the previous years, you will included in this are decreases in enrollment for state funding, and those are based on losing 200 students every year. So that number could change. Expenditures includes a step increase for all staff in all of those years as well. So you'll see the capital transfer, I budgeted 2.4. Going forward, it's usually anywhere between 2.2 and 2.5. This year we didn't spend quite as much. So leaving us again with the 14.86 for the 2021 school year. And next screen. So the interim superintendent is recommending approval of the 2021 preliminary budget and the salary charts that were attached. Are there any questions for me?
Yes. Yes. I would like to go back to the explain on the enrollment for the pre-K.
And I'm having a hard time hearing, I'm sorry.
Ms. Kendrick asked if you could go back to the screen that was enrollment
Okay.
for pre-K.
Yeah. Just curious to know what is the cost to run that program?
The pre-K program?
Yes, ma'am.
We use about 2.5 million of our Title I for the pre-K students. And then we also receive early childhood special education of about $2 million. So we're pretty close to about $4 million for our pre-K program.
So if I see where you're saying without pre-K. So
Right. We do that because our funding is based on K through 12, and we get 4% of our pre-K funding, our pre-K average daily attendance. And so I broke that out so you'll see the difference.
So if we don't need to have that many kids, how do we justify the fund, or where do we do the funds to cover?
I'm sorry, one more time.
if we don't receive enough children or have enough kids enrolled, how do you fund that program?
We would be looking at classroom size. That's something we look at early in the fall to see if we still need all of the teachers and all of the paras that we've hired for that. So far, historically with pre-K, and we haven't lost that many students. You'll see just, I'm trying to say the difference between the 1,044, so about 24 students. And we usually have about 500 pre-K students every year.
Do we receive a grant for these kids, or how does that, is it like a certain dollar amount we get for pre-K? Or have we ever received a grant?
We've done Missouri's preschool projects. We had that for 4 years. That went away. But we don't use state and local funds for any of this. We use Title I, which is federal, and we also use Early Childhood Special Ed, which is state funding. So, and it's just specifically for early childhood.
Also, I had an additional question on the preliminary notes.
Oh, one more time, I'm sorry.
On your preliminary notes, I had.
Yes.
Going
Okay.
back on reviewing some of the previous board meetings, I see that you had some outstanding insurance that was due to your old insurance period.
Yes.
I wanted to know, has those payments been made, and is that part of this preliminary budget? Has that been calculated?
Yes, we've been a part of the self-insurance pool, the cooperating school district self-insurance pool, and we are actually leaving that pool as of June 30th. So we've had to make surplus payments because we are responsible for those claims. We are going with Cigna straight, so we're going to be our own self-funded pool, but we have a cap on how much we can spend. And so built into that budget is the runoff payments and the most that it would cost up to that cap. Does that make sense?
You saying the runoff is that the old balance that was due? So what you're saying? The old insurance premiums, what was due back to your old period? Is that included in this budget? And is that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so when will that be completely paid?
Well, we are making a payment this month towards that. And then we'll be getting monthly bills for claims that occurred prior to July 1. So, and that could probably take anywhere from 6 months to a year, but those payments should be getting smaller each month. If I'm understanding your question correctly.
Yes, yes. And then also I had a question about, I believe you addressed it, there was a outstanding debt that you were paying. It was $750,000 or?
Outstanding, the general obligation bonds, is that what you're asking me about?
Yes, the 7.4.
Okay, those are the general obligation bonds that we go out for to do improvements to our buildings. It's very common for school districts to do this. That's actually what we're looking at for 2020. Now that all comes out of our debt service fund, which does not affect our fund balance at all. If you saw, I don't know, can you go back to that screen for me? I want to say it's up. I keep going up a little bit, or was it? You know what? I'm sorry. Go the other way. Go the other way.
He's referring to them.
Oh, okay.
This one right here. Thank you. So you'll see our tax levy is based, we have a debt fund of 1.1. And so for every assessed value dollar that comes through, we get 1.1 of that goes into our debt service fund to pay, for those general obligation bonds. So it's separated out from our fund balance completely. And that money can only be spent on principal and interest payments for bonds.
Now, is this part of the Cerner, fallback or? is that-
No, this has nothing to do with Cerner.
So, well, there was mention of a Cerner fallback. What is that? Is that part of this budget?
That was back in 2018, 2019. We had been given an assessed value by Cerner. Then it changed. So we did not receive all the funding that we were expecting. And then they actually made a excuse me, a payment to us that was supposed to go through TIF. And so they pulled all of that back. But it was like 735,000 if I'm going from memory. That's being split over 3 years, and they're just taking that out of our assessed value that we receive. So when we get a payment, we get payments from Jackson County every month for people when they pay their taxes. And in January, we usually get a very large payment because people have paid their taxes in December. So every January for the next 2 years, they'll be pulling out that third of that payment that we owe. And so it's not something that we will be cutting a check to them. So,
So it doesn't affect our,
no. Well, it does because we won't expect all the revenue. But the revenue that I built in for the assessed value is exactly the same as I built in for the 1920 school year. Excuse me. So that's already taken into effect. Yes, taken into account.
I believe you answered all my questions. Also, with the different variations of how the fund balance is being projected, I know someone mentioned that there was going to be an audit somewhere. So how does that process work, and can there be an outside audit company to do an
Yes,
audit?
we are required by the state to be audited annually. We have our auditors in district every October. It's usually the last week of October, first week of November. Go out to bid for auditing services. We are currently under a contract with Westbrook and Company. They do a really good job. They come out, spend 4 or 5 days with us every year in the business office, keeps us all really busy. And then they come and present that usually at the December board meeting, and because it has to be submitted to DESI by December 31st every year. So I want to say we have 2 more years under contract with Westbrook. And we have the option for 2 more years after that, but we go out to bid for the service every time that it's up and available to go out for bid.
What do you mean bid? Is it, they're doing a different bid from the company?
Because we're a public entity, we have to do our due diligence in how we spend our money. So there's certain items, right now it's anything over 25,000, we have to do a sealed bid for. So we put together a request for proposal or a request for information, request for quote, and companies submit sealed bids to us. And then we open those bids at a certain time after it closes, take the best, usually the lowest price. If it matches what we've asked for, well, those will be presented to the board, and then the board will approve the contract with that vendor.
Well, that come up?
I'm sorry,
When would you be doing that process?
one more time, I'm sorry.
When will that bidding process start? When you start?
We do those constantly. So I think right now we actually have a couple bids out. On our website, we have our online or our bidding information and all the different bids that we have open. But we do them all the time, trying to get the best pricing. I'm not sure what Mr. Weekly has out there. Dan Weekly does a lot of bids for the district.
So we don't necessarily have to go with the current company that we approved. That's what like,
I'm sorry, one more time.
but I wanted to clarify that we were locking, we couldn't use a separate company.
So Shelley, I think
Yes.
we're currently under contract with the current auditing company, correct? Or at least what-
Correct.
Okay, we won't be able to put out a bid until the contract is done, right?
Right, and that contract would run from July 1st through June 30th. I believe we have 2 more years. I'd have to go back and look. So that would take us out through the June 30th of 2022. And then if we decided we wanted to not put it out for bid and take one of that year option, we would bring that to the board and have them approve accepting that 1-year option and stick with them for another year. Or we would go out to bid for audit services.
One question. Kelly, could you tell us what was our fund balance? I can't remember for the month of May.
We were sitting at a little over 16%.
So the 16% into now, as of June, now we're at 14.86.
That's a different school year. The 16% is based on the 1920 school year. The 14 is based on the 2021 school year. So, and that number for 2021 can change based on where we actually come in at the end of the 1920 school year.
So for May, we didn't have a 2021. Well, I thought the numbers are changing for me. That's why I'm trying to, some reason the fund balance, that's what I'm trying to figure out from last month.
It did. It changed based on COVID, information brought down from the state.
Give us a dollar amount on how much instead of, can you tell us the dollar amount that changed? Because I'm looking at the fund balance, it keeps going down, down, and it goes up. So last month, what was the fund balance? The percentage. I thought we had a different number. I'm not for sure.
For the 1920 school year was 6%.
For the 2021?
Right, but those numbers have changed drastically due to the COVID, the cuts in state funding, the cuts in Prop C, classroom trust fund. So that's why you're seeing this tonight, because I was waiting as close as I could to June 30th to get the most accurate picture I could give.
Could you get, what is the dollar amount that of difference? Do you have that?
I don't have it in front of me.
Because it's fund balance is what's bothering me. How are we going to survive off of 1.39 fund balance predicted for 2023, 2024 school year? There's no way. I mean, do you
No,
have,
and we would not allow that to happen. There'll be.
how stop it happening?
I'm sorry.
How are we going to predict to stop that from happening? We're not going to allow it. When we're just now up and down, we're fluctuating up and down with the fund balance. And it seems like these numbers are all over the place. So I'm just really concerned if we ever hit 1.39, what's going to happen, Shelley?
Well, we wouldn't allow that to happen. We would be making cuts. We would be looking at different ways to save money. We would be looking at programs. We would be looking at everything we possibly could. Because if you get below a 3%, the state comes in.
So we're looking, we get below 3%, the state's going to come in.
Yes,
So
but we're looking, that's 3 years down the road. There's a lot of things that we can do, a lot of changes that we can make that will not allow that to happen. Plus those can change drastically depending on what happens this year.
And I would like to say, Director Carter, this is one of those ones that we're constantly looking at. That's why we project it so far out, so that if you see something like this, we can go ahead and take action. For instance, we cut $5.5 billion out of the budget last year, recommended closing 3 schools, we did close 2. And so these are the kind of things that we'll look at, and who knows, possibly look at closing another school in the future to kind of coincide with our original recommendation to help save money as well. But there's a multitude of things that can happen. But the whole point is, when we see this dwindling down exactly that you see as well, it raises concern with us as well. So we start looking at ways to, change and cut budgets and cut funds and make adjustments in the way that we spend money, and we prioritize even more than what we already have. So we're constantly looking at ways to make sure that we are being fiduciary responsible with this money, as we move forward. And again, we will have a better picture in July, what it's going to look like. I did ask, and I did speak with Mr. O'Bean as well, and we both are in agreement to bring forth the budget tonight with the bleakest picture possible. We wanted to make sure that we look at the worst case scenario presented by the state when we put the budget together for tonight. Because I didn't want to sit there and see that, let's say 16 or 17 and we come in lower. I would much rather say that, 2021 is going to have a 14.8 and then add a 15 or 16. I definitely don't want to come any lower. So we're trying to make sure that we're trying to be as prudent as possible and try to make sure that, we're presenting you with the facts, as well as trying to make sure that, we're not going to kind of sugarcoat it, so to speak, and think that we could possibly come in at a 16 and then we come in at a 14.8. We'd rather say we're going to come in at a 14.8 and then possibly come in higher.
I think I was looking more, and don't quote me on numbers, I'm not there. But I was looking at, one time we talked about we were having an increase in 22.4, and we were having high hopes about our fund balance being increased. We increased it, we were going to be. Then we look at, next thing you know, we get hit with, okay, now the fund balance dropped. And I know we had COVID. I mean, I understand that was a big impact. But then again, it's like, okay, we're getting high hopes, we're going to be here. Then we get hit with, oh, the fund balance is down here, we drop again. It's like we're gambling back and forth, but we can't, like I said, I understand these numbers right here, 1.39%, it's the statement that's a prediction. We're predicting this, and Shelley saying this is not going to happen, but we can never say something's never going to happen because we don't know. But this is what worries me, is that we go up, we go down, we go up, we go down, and we can't determine if 1.39%, if we're not going to get there, because if it does happen, like she said, state's going to come in and take over.
Right, but this is where we go in, and again, if you recall what Shelley said a little while ago, this projected budget for one goes out, and we've already taken out a step for teachers in each one of these, taken out a decrease of 200 students in each one of the steps. So we're making some projections that we could actually make changes if we had to. Again, we don't want to, because again, our teachers, are already struggling and want to support them as much as possible. But again, I will say that prior to 7 years ago, when I came into the district, there were several years the teachers were frozen. They've not been frozen in 7 years. So, and they've only had a few of those years that they've been able to get a % raise. And so we do look at all of this, and that's why, we project it out those so that we can see if we don't do anything different, if we make no changes, this is where we could be. And so we see that, and then we can make changes accordingly to make sure that we don't get there.
So when will these reviews, once Mr. O'Bean is here, I'm sorry, once Mr. O'Bean is here, he's gonna do all those reviews overall each department, see what we can call. Is that what you're saying?
Mr. O'Bean, he may even be on the call tonight. If Kevin's going to chime in, I don't know if he is. See if he'd like to answer that question himself.
As Mr. O'Bean said that he would pop in, he did not give a specific time in which he would say, okay, so he may not be on this call.
I asked,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I asked him to unmute, but he hasn't responded.
So, for the most part, what I'm hearing from administration is that we're trying to be transparent forward. And with that, I respect the fact that the board is trying to hold the district accountable for its spending. And I know that we're dealing with a majority of mitigating factors. And the one thing that I'm going to ask of the administration, whether with O'Bean, with the current interim superintendent, is that we are made aware of getting mitigating factors based on the budget that we've seen and based on the budget that we're moving forward, so that we can be able to make those moves. We are very reliant on transparency, so we can hold ourselves accountable and remain fiscally conservative. So with that being said, I would like to make the administration aware that it's going to be important that you pay attention to the things that you bring to us, as we're going to be coming from a very fiscally conservative plans. We want to make sure that our district is alive in 2 years.
And I appreciate that. Again, that's why, when Ms. Wilson talked about, the state gave us several scenarios with the lowest of 25 million, 50, 75, 100, and 125 million. We definitely went for the worst case scenario of 125 million because, we could have chose 25 million. We'd be looking at a much different picture right now. But we chose not to do that because we do want to be transparent.
That being said, is there any more discussion for us to get? And we ran over our time on this topic, but this topic is that important. Decision making things is equally important. But pretty much at this time, the chair is.
I just want to add that I think that it's really important to piggyback off what Kenny said. I understand the model. I understand where you're going with this. And Shelley, I think it's more important for the board to know what our options are in terms of what the funding's going to look like in the future, on what our options are and how we can raise revenue. I think that this is a very dire doom and gloom strategy in terms of what the funding looks like. I would be more concerned about areas where we can try to raise additional revenue, not always go first to cutting. Because what I don't want to happen is I don't want to end up cutting in the area of direct services for the kids. And so I know it's important to cut. We have to save money. I don't think we should be, but I hope we can find a way where we're investing in students. And I know in this next bond, I think we're talking about in August, be for buildings and facilities, which is great. But I think that we should be looking at how we can grow revenues for the best in the classroom, beyond just the facilities portion. So I'm hoping that you can, it's over time, over the next couple months, look at that. I would be willing to look at something to go to the voters to make an investment in their local school. So I just think that that's something we need to look at as we look at the dire numbers for revenues. I think we've got to look at the way we grow revenue for this district. And we can't just be reliant on the state, because that's probably not likely to come. I think we've got to rely on our own tax bases here and be upfront, transparent with the voters and with the residents and say, hey, this is where we are. And if, we want to invest in our kids in our own schools, they have to come from us. And that may be a tax increase. I mean, we don't know, but I think that that's something we honestly have to take a hard look at. Thank you.
Yes, I agree.
If I might, I would hope that Superintendent Dean, in a short period of time, would bring to us some options as it relates to financial projection. And I know that's very difficult since we have had this pandemic before us. Dr. Staley said that we are scheduled to open August 24th. But it's saying that if this stage rises in terms of the pandemic, we may not be able to open. So all these things are so uncertain. And so nothing is perfect. There's no perfect world as it relates to where we are in America today. And of course, Missouri and the Hickman School District is just microcosm of what that's all about. And so, but I would hope that there will really be a close look at. Nothing more important, it seems to me, than knowing whether or not we're going to be able to educate the kids that we have. And I've always been concerned about keeping the ones we have, and we're not able to do that for a number of reasons. But at the same time, whatever number of kids we have to educate them. And the primary objective, and we went to 3 schools and then some people didn't want any, we ended up coming up with 2, which I still didn't think was enough. We didn't anticipate the pandemic was coming on in, nobody did. So we got that, but I would hope that and I'm sure it will, that Superintendent BOE and others and his staff will pull together and present to us early on some options. Now, this is the preliminary budget that's we've been expected to act on tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, the preliminary budget, we need to approve the preliminary budget.
And the final would be done at our July 16th meeting?
Correct.
Okay. So, all right, okay. I just want to make that very clear because we've got to have this, what it is, And it is what it is, and, you know, so we have to trust those folks who put this together, and I think that Mr. Wilson's done a great job of doing that. And it's hard based on the circumstances for us to give any definite answer as to yes, it's going to be this, and maybe it may change overnight. And there's still that concern about the county. There's still lawsuits out there, and that with regard to that way the assessed valuation was done. So all these are so uncertain. So anyway, another thing. So I would move that we accept the preliminary budget as presented.
A second. Is there any further discussion? Vice President Kennedy. Director Johnson. Aye. Director Carter.
No.
Director Brooks.
All right,
Director McGee. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Mr. Weekly has the next two items.
Good evening. We've kind of discussed this a little bit, but wanted to talk about the compass walls for just a little bit. This is something building administration had requested back in the winter time. We were, even if we were able to get a design and everything, we could not have done it during the school year. So we brought it to the facilities committee in May. They decided not to bring it to the full board. We decided to revisit that with Dr. Skinner, and Dr. Skinner and Mr. Watry decided to put it back on the agenda for the purpose of revisiting this item. At the time, the original design was designed for a choice school, and that had that open concept piece to it in 3 of our classrooms that were upstairs. When we went back to neighborhood schools this past year, we felt like that concept did not work for our schools, especially Compass. And so since we were contemplating getting to these walls, I visited several school districts across the city to look at walls that I thought would be good for our school building. Also, I worked in conjunction with the curriculum instruction department to find out what kind of walls that they were looking for. And what we wanted was something that was very flexible in nature. We could open and close. Also, we wanted to be able to utilize those walls for instructional purposes. We could write on them, we could move them in and out, so we could do small grouping, large grouping. We could totally cut them off. They could have sound barrier. And also, in addition to that, for safety purposes, they would have an egress door on them as well, and also be very pleasing to the eye as well, aesthetically. So I met with several companies over during the COVID, when we were shut down with COVID. I met them on site. We did several walkthroughs of buildings. I was able to get 3 bids. The bid we went with was a company called DIRT. DIRT is a national cooperative company as well, that we are on the national cooperative list. They are also the lowest, and they also had, to me, the most pleasant design and the design that matched all the qualities we wanted. We wanted soundproofing, we wanted flexibility, and we wanted an instructional wall to go along with it. So this particular bid kind of matches all of the pieces that we were looking for Compass and upstairs in the 3 classrooms upstairs. Entertaining any questions you might have.
I have a question. If you can refresh your memory, would you say that we weren't going to use the fund balance for this wall? We were going to use it for the company?
These are ECS funds.
Right, but when we had our meeting, this was never brought up in the meeting. So that's why we didn't know until now. I don't believe I heard this when we had our committee meeting about them providing the funds for this wall. Because this is the first time I'm hearing this. That's why I was so worried thinking that this is coming out of our fund balance. And now that I hear that it's going to be funded by something totally different, I didn't know this. See, that's what was not run to the committee at the beginning. And that's why when we discussed this, we did not display. We asked for a simple sliding door. We didn't even use that because we knew we didn't have the money for it. And I understand that that was a choice, but we don't have the funds. That's why I was asking. If it's something new to me. If that would have been relevant to me the first time, we might have thought about something different.
Well, at the time that we discussed it the first time, I had set aside money in my capital budget and my buildings and grounds budget, my capital budget. I had set aside the money for this process to begin with, and that's what I presented in May. And to working with Dr. Skinner and Ms. Wiltsey, we looked at possibly looking at using the ECSC funds as an alternate, so that way we could not affect any of the budgets, since that's reimbursable money. It has changed.
So it has changed, and that was an alternate. Okay, like I said, it was never discussed at the beginning because we went through this about twice. This is the third time hearing about, over this whole divider thing. Like I said, we visited the school, we seen it was chaotic. We knew they needed this, but we just didn't want to spend that much money. Don't get me wrong, they need it. But that price was just what was bothering me, like $40,000. And then he said we had to, this is the cheapest, right? All right.
Well, I don't know about, was this the cheapest, Mr. Watt, or Mr.
The lowest
Wheatley?
bid.
Yes, this was the cheapest bid.
The bid, okay. All right. So, that price still.
I mean, I think, I can ask Ms. Franklin to speak at it a little bit more in length if you'd like. Ms. Franklin has been very involved in the process as well. Ms. Franklin, do you mind chiming in, please?
Do you have pictures of it, or?
There are attachments of what they might look like now. Can we pull up some of the attachments to that?
I just
Might be good,
this week. Missing the Frank.
Mr. Weekly, if we could, when we put these out, if we could list
She's already in.
the companies who are bidding and what those bids were, be good. Can we do that?
Yeah, one of the bids was for around just a little over 43,000, and the final, or the highest number bid was 49,000. They're actually, Ms. Payton, if you could click on those, you can see those, but you'll see the Hallworth bid was a little over 43,000, and then the Pro bid was a little over 49,000.
So she's, I've tried responding to unmute her.
You said there was attachments.
I thought there were pictures we looked at before. I will look through the attachments real quick to see if there are pictures that I knew there were at one point. Meanwhile, I'll
on the dirt proposal, you should have pictures at the very end.
All right, that's what I was thinking.
Right there. See on the far right-hand side, that's what's called a pivot door.
Oh, yeah,
So
there it goes.
you'll see in the middle where those are barn doors that slide, but also they have the ability to be written on, and then you'll see the whiteboard writable space on the two sides as well. And then the pivot door on the sides for if you want to keep that space closed, students can still go back and forth if you want them to. So so it helps keeping that space quiet, but at the same time accessible.
This is how
This is 3 sets of walls. And I don't know, again, Ms. Franklin is still there, she can hear. I would like.
Yes, yes, Dr. Skinner, I can hear you. It is a little hard to hear. I thought I heard my name, but I wasn't for sure. Good evening. I'm glad that we're talking about the walls. The only thing I would like to add to what Mr. Weekly has already shared is just from the teacher perspective. I will be honest with you, this was probably the #1 request that teachers made as it related to being able to provide more quality instruction to students, particularly the younger students. And I will add that that was also the request of the principal. I know that they have really been trying to work around particularly the noise issue, just having the classes so open. And what you may have seen are some kind of makeshift dividers that they've tried to put in between the rooms to provide some privacy so that students aren't distracted. And while that does help a little bit, there's other issues that Mr. Weekly mentioned in terms of when we're having drills, they're not able to really secure the space at all. And that was a primary concern. The other issue that I would like to just bring up, considering COVID, is that the other schools can separate classrooms, and those walls do serve as yet an additional barrier, which we know parents will be really concerned about. And so if we can put that in place, in addition to ensuring that we can provide a more quality classroom experience for the students and teachers, I really think that we would see some huge benefits from that on multiple levels. And so I just wanted to share that because the teachers did share that with me directly on multiple occasions.
Ms. Franklin, so the principal, when I looked at the option one and the items listed on the option one for compass, I didn't see, I'm kind of just questioning why the principal didn't list anything about these sliding door or dividers, because if the principal had concerns about this and she wanted it, you would think they would actually put this under option one as one of their list on recommendations of one of the things they wanted done at their school. And I didn't see that. That's what shocked me when I took a look at it. I didn't see that under compass. And I'm like, okay, well, this is something that, everybody's recommended to have. And you would think the principal would state that or put that at least under option one as one of the recommendations.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that we had been having this discussion prior, and I do believe that she was under the impression that this was something that was already being purchased outside of that list of items that would be covered under the bond. And that was my understanding. And Mr. Weekly, please correct me if that's not the case, but I believe that that was her understanding as well.
Yeah, that is true. I think that she fully thought that this would either happen through a board approval or through my capital funds like we had discussed. So she probably did not mention it.
Okay, so she was just predicting that it was going to basically be out of the bond or on your capital fund. She didn't really think about it. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
So is there any further discussion? So, the conference for a second. Further discussion. Vice President Kendrick. Director Johnson. Aye. Director Carter.
No.
Director Brooks.
Aye.
Director Meeks. Aye. Director Wilson. Aye. Motion carries 5-1. Next item.
Mr. Weekly, next item.
Okay, so over the past several months, Dr. Skinner and I have been working tirelessly and trying to find appropriate PPE for our students and staff. And there's a whole myriad of pieces that go with this. We also, obviously we have hand sanitizer, gloves, masks, shields, equipment to actually disperse the chemicals that we'll need to cleanse our classrooms and our buses and our cafeteria tables. So there's a whole gamut of a product and equipment and items that we need to purchase prior to the start of the school year. And obviously these are items that are hard to obtain, have, various quantities. The supply chain of all these things is very suspect. And so getting the quality that we expect for our students and staff to wear and getting the quantity that we need for that quality is really been difficult. And that's why Dr. Skinner and I have spent so much time vetting out vendors and quality of product and quantity of product and availability, quite honestly, of those products. So we have come across several companies and vendors that have some what we consider to be high quality products for our kids, and in all these areas that I discussed. And so we would like to be able to, because since it can't be one vendor that does it all, there's just going to be a multitude of vendors that makes all this happen for our kids and our staff. We're asking that that board approve kind of a not to exceed amount of $100,000 for us to buy all of this PPE for our students and staff for the upcoming fall school year. Some of these items we are already purchased. I've already purchased hand sanitizer to a certain level that I've been able to capture. Some masks and meaning throwaway masks. So we are accumulating some of those things, and we do have some shields. Dr. Skinner is wearing that today. So we are purchasing some of these. We do have some supply, but we know that we have not near enough that we're going to need for the start of the school year. So we need to begin that purchasing now, and talking to the vendors. It's very clear that we need to start purchasing now. That way we get the quantity and quality we need. And we may not need the 100,000. We just we need to have a ceiling for us to work towards, and then present to the board each month. Here's what we purchased, here's what it cost, and here's where we think we need to go next.
And I'll go in just a little bit further, because I was trying to show y'all some of the examples, some of the things that we're considering. Again, nothing, these, believe it or not, are very nice and flexible, and they're rated at wearing every day for approximately 6 months, but they are kind of disposable. They're not like the ones that you have. Yours are rated much higher. And then we're looking at different masks and so forth. Some like this, again, logos, you can actually put every school logo on the mask, and these particular masks that we're looking at also have pockets in there if parents want to have to do something for them as well. And the one thing that this particular mask looks like, it has a bead at the end, it's adjustable, and the nice thing about it is it's, kids would want to take it off. They have a bead that they can't take it off. And they come in different sizes. And I will tell you, another thing we're also doing is we're working with other school districts trying to buy in bulk to get the prices down. Because, when I place an order, let's say for 6,000, I go in with another district, and let's say we need 12 or 18,000, that brings our prices down. Is that really incorporated? No, this is just us kind of working together at this point, to be honest. So these are some of the things, and to be honest, we started looking at them, and we said if, and it's just if, because we're trying to make sure, again, safety is paramount. If we buy, let's say, for instance, 2 masks for each student, that could easily go over $50,000. Easily, and so we do want to make sure that we do buy a quality product that's going to last, and we're looking at buying 2 products for every student, so they can have 1 here and 1 at home being washed. And then again, not everybody's going to have them, so we're looking at either disposable or something like this for the classroom. So again, we're looking at a variety of products, trying to make sure, again, our staff and our students remain safe.
Mr. President, I heard Mr. Weekly say about sanitizing the buses. Does the Apple have a responsibility for that?
I'm sorry, hand sanitizer?
No, did I hear you say that sanitizing the buses? Now, my question was, if I heard you right, does Apple have a responsibility for sanitizing the buses?
Yeah, absolutely they do. All we want to do is support them in that process. And what I mean by that is we want to provide them, like we have those sprayers. They oftentimes, they have the chemical that they need, but we can put them in a spray gun that makes it even more efficient for them to use the chemical, and it's much faster. So we have those guns, and we can let them borrow them. And we thought, we just want to make sure we're supporting our kids with Apple as well if we need to. We're not going to, spend a lot of money on them or anything. That's not the idea. The idea is that we're holding them accountable to clean and support them in that clean. If we need to help them with standard operating procedures, with using the chemicals, and because a lot of times they're not a chemical company, they're a bus company. And fortunately, part of our business is that we're part of a chemical company because we clean up after kids every day. So we just want to make sure we can support them in that process to make sure our kids are safe. And we'll probably do a little bit of training with them to help them and understand what are touch points and how to use their chemicals and what the right way to use them. We've already worked with them so far, and they're doing a great job with it at the very start of this crisis when we were doing this. But we also want to make sure that at the start of the school year, we have a good standard operating procedure, good chemical base, and a good way of handling those chemicals safely on their part too.
And I would like to add that very paramount, because since we have gone to a 3-tier bus system, the buses have to be cleaned very quickly in between routes. So when the bus driver is going to drop off that last student, they have to take a moment, sanitize all the seats, drive on to the next location, pick up a student, and by that time the seats should be dry. But we do need to make sure that we assist to make sure that we keep our children safe.
And these funds are coming out of this part of the preliminary budget as well.
Well, these funds will be coming out. However, these can also come out of that CARES Act fund. So that extra money we could actually get reimbursed for.
And then with the math, with the kids receive these at school, and I guess the math.
Again, we, on our task force, that's what we're looking at, but we are talking about, again, trying to give 2 masks to every children. Like, for instance, this is just a thought. We haven't decided. That's one of the reasons why we left this the way it is. We talked about giving 1 mask with a logo to every student. It costs a little bit more to do this, and then everybody else can just maybe get a blank white or black mask, make it a little bit cheaper option to purchase. But we are looking to give every student at least 2 masks to make sure that they have 1 here and 1 at home clean while they're wearing this one. And again, also looking at other options in case somebody forgets it. We want to make sure, again, we have everything provided for our students and staff to say.
So could these be left in the classroom so the teacher already have them?
We were thinking, to be honest, just the first thought. Again, nothing's been decided, but we were thinking these might be left in the classroom because they're more permanent. We wouldn't have to be going back and forth to the home, and that way a teacher would have a set perhaps, and then they can have to clean them. The masks, so we were thinking of basically letting them take 1 home, have 1 there. That might be a little bit more difficult. However, there has been discussion about maybe the students, especially at the elementary level, keep 1 in their desk in a plastic bag or something. So there's been a lot of discussion, but we haven't decided exactly where we're going to be with it yet. We're just having possibilities at this point.
Yeah, it might be easy to leave like something like that in the classroom in a plastic bag, and then they have to dispose it on.
Right.
So back and forth. They're not always going to bring them back and stay out. Or keep them out. Yeah, and then with the ones with the logo, is there a way, I don't know, or I guess to put the child's name on them, because they all got the same logo, somebody take it off.
That's something we probably have to get something like marker of some type right on the mask, get the names printed with the logo. But that is something I would envision. We've already had that discussion. You've seen those white indelible markers you can write on like black fabric and so forth. So, something like that would stay on the fabric with the child's name.
Are these CDC approved? Is this approved by the CDC, or how do we look at that for the school?
When you look at this one, again, this one's 2-ply at the moment. If a parent or if we decide as a district to provide filters, then it will be 3-ply. But right now it's 2-ply. The nice thing about this is it's very breathable, it's comfortable, it's made from that material, very similar to some of the sweat garments that will wick the moisture away, so that it won't cause rashes on the face when they wear it for a long period of time. And again, if you like, I'll be happy to let you borrow one, wear one, see what you think of it. But we are just trying to make sure that we keep our students safe as possible. A lot with the mask going on right now, you've seen the trajectory. Everybody, and I say everybody that I've been listening to, talking to, the superintendent, meeting, and so forth, as well as what I see on the news, is without a mask, we're spiking even higher, but with the mask, we'll start to level a little bit more, not spike quite as high. And this is across, to be honest, the country, and right now in Kansas City, the discussion's been, the closer you are to the heart of the city, the more masks are being worn. You get further away, less people are wearing them. And so that's just one of the things we're talking about, possibly trying to put some type of advertisement promotion for everybody to wear masks, keep our students safe, because it doesn't do a lot of good if we provide our students with their masks, we provide masks for all of our teachers, and then they go to Walmart and get not wearing masks.
I think I'm more concerned, like Peter said, they're having the same logo. They're young kids, they're swapping out, maybe get confused, some person laying here, pick it up. Then if they're not being washed or cleaned, it's coughing that mask. Kid puts it back in their vest, or put it down on the desk. Another kid picks it up, picking it up the mask. There's germs. You know,
Well, and it may be, and again, none of this is decided, maybe what we do is, we have washers and dryers at every school, maybe the masks don't go home at all. But I don't know, but again, we need the students to wear masks on the bus. So, again, we don't have all the answers at this point. All we know is we are going to need to purchase this material. And when we get it ready, we're going to need to have the board's approval to go forward with that. And I welcome any suggestions you have. Send me emails as far as keep one in the bag, and then they only have one going back and forth. I mean, I welcome any suggestions you have.
That's good. I don't know whether your mic is on. No, that's.
It's on.
Is that-
You can't hear me?
So what,
I don't wanna
what is the
get-
cost with disposable ones, with them taking them back, or disposable ones, maybe get.
We do have some disposable, and we could possibly order more if need be. Thing is, with the disposable, they're not cheap, even though they're disposable. So we are trying, again, to be fiscally responsible and trying to make sure that we purchase something that's safe for our students, but also, watching our budget.
Kind of feel more comfortable with disposable ones. I mean, I'm not worried about the budget for kids safety, because we do have kids that have health issues, asthmatic, and that's a real big concern to me. I don't want to focus on budget now when it comes to kids safety with the mask, and then we focus on something else. No.
Well, that's why we're looking at getting reusable cloth back. So again, they can be safe, and we're not constantly buying disposable.
So what, let me ask, could, like, the bus company provide masks for kids when they get on the bus? Do you provide disposable when they leave, or what could the bus company afford with that?
Good question.
We have been working, with them, and like I said, we were talking about possibly either giving disposable masks to buses or possibly providing these on the bus again. We don't want to turn anybody away from the bus. We want to make sure that we provide something for them to be able to ride the bus. But they are going to have something in order to ride the bus.
Right, I'm just saying, could the bus company take some of that cost for purchasing disposable ones for students when they ride a bus?
That's something Mr. Wheatley might be able to comment on.
I didn't hear the question.
I wanted to know if Apple Bus Company takes some of the responsibility of covering the cost of disposable masks.
Well, it's certainly not a part of their contract, and it's not something that's ever been expected of them before or in their contract. So it'd be something we could discuss with them as a possibility. The safety of our students is our responsibility and not theirs. Theirs is to transport. So it's something that is in the contract about, them supplying materials. It's not part of that in the past. So it'd be something we'd have to discuss with them.
Yeah, I understand this is not norm, but the situation is not normal either. So it's not, you always ask if they can take
Sure.
responsibility because of we're suffering just like everyone else. So if there is a means for them to cover some of the costs, that we can always ask, all they do is say no.
And is there a requirement the bus drivers need to make sure they have on masks too? Right, that's required, because if kids gotta wear masks, we need to make sure the bus drivers have on masks.
Oh, yeah, in fact, the bus drivers, to be honest, are going to probably be more vulnerable than anybody else, because they're going to fall in that high-risk category a lot. So, yeah, we want everybody on the bus to wear masks.
Mr. President, I know we're going over our calendar. I would hope that, that we would send out that, I would hope that we would send out to our parents, this, because I would suspect that many of these homes aren't taking this thing serious. And I go to a couple of all these and also Price Chopper. And I see folks all the time who go kids and just deal with the kids with nothing on. Maybe somewhere we send out that we could also express to them, and of course there's a safety with this pandemic going on. We encourage them also when you go out in public to have that. I think every opportunity we get there.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, that came up on a call today with superintendents, the fact that we do need to advertise, because exactly what I said, if our students are wearing masks at school, but then they go to Aldi's, they go to Price Chopper, they go to Walmart, go to places nobody else is wearing them, it defeats the purpose, and it definitely cuts that safety down. So we're definitely going to have a campaign to wear the mask and equipment in the community.
Also go to Dollar Tree.
So for, with that, Mr. President, I would like to move that we approve the recommendation on this letter that they provide PPE at a cost of no more than $100,000.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Calling to vote. Vice President Kimball. Director Thompson. Aye. Director McGee. Aye. Director Carter. Director Brooks.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Ms. Franklin has the next item.
Good evening again. The item that I have this evening is the MoreNet Microsoft licensing contract. This is an annual contract which is renewed each year for the following school year. The current contract ends on July 31st, 2020 and needs to be renewed. The licensing for all Microsoft Office, Microsoft Server, Microsoft SQL Server products is an annual renewal for the district. The total cost of the Microsoft 365 EDU agreement is based on a staff FTE formula, and all student licensing is provided at no cost. MoreNet is the district's vendor for the Microsoft M365 EDU agreement. The technology director renegotiated licensing costs for the 2021 school year at a cost savings to the district. The total proposed expenditure is $34,245.68 and will be paid from the technology budget. The interim superintendent recommends the renewal of the MoreNet Microsoft licensing contract for the 2021 school year for $34,245.68.
Mr. President, I move approval of the Microsoft licensing contract.
Wait a second.
I second.
Is there discussion? No discussion. Vice President Kimball.
Aye.
Director McGee. Aye. Director Thompson. Aye. Director Carter. Director Brooks.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
No problem. 5.5.
For 5.5, this is a topic that we discussed at the June 11th meeting that we wanted to come back and revisit at this time because it is a change of policy, which would typically require 2 reads. Although we had permission to approve it in one, we wanted to further examine it. So I'll just kind of go through it one more time to kind of tell everybody where we are. This is basically a proposal to have unused vacation convert into leave at the end of the school year. Currently, all professional staff employed on a 12-month basis receive 15 days of vacation the first year and 20 days thereafter. Vacation days do not accrue. Therefore, upon, except now there is one exception, and that is the approval of the superintendent. At the end of the year, they can roll over 5 days that must be used in the month of July. but anything not used at the end of that time is lost. And right now, 20 vacation days are very, this has been a challenge anyway, very difficult to use sometimes 20 days with the multitude of critical and non-critical everyday occurrences that we have. And of course, right now with COVID-19, we've had several 12-month we're unable to complete vacation plans and still have some. I even ran into some that had 20 days still approved that didn't use any days during the year. So right now, we also, and I will tell you, this is really kind of affecting mostly technology, food service, maintenance, buildings and grounds, although it does have other 12-month employees, those are the bulk of who it affects. And most employees are not LSA exempt. So therefore, what happens a lot of times when we have a snow day, we'll have buildings and grounds come and clear the snow and we give them comp time. So they will have comp time, they'll use the comp time on top of their vacation days. And really, to be honest, a lot of times people are going to take it. They don't want to lose it. So they will just take time off, just to make sure they're not losing any days. So policy GCBDA, again, if it's not used, that vacation day will be lost. So what I am proposing that this year, we have the option to remain or rolling over 5 days. So starting next year, that option would be taken away. And at the end of June 30th, at the end of every year, any unused vacation days would convert into leave days. And there is some cost with this. We talked about that before. We have also further in that policy that if an employee has been in the district for at least 5 years, they would be compensated at a rate of 25% of any unused vacation time at that time. If they stay in the district for 10 years, they get 50% of that unused days at, again, sub pay. And then 15 years is 75% of sub pay. And if they stay in the district a full 20 years, it is 100% of sub pay. So again, if we pass this policy and convert this turn leave or turn vacation into leave, that will help, I think, the necessity from everybody feeling they need to take those days. And so again, what I'm looking to do is to say that unused vacation days would automatically roll over as leave days starting with this school year. And in addition, staff could still roll over 5 days this school year. However, starting with the 2021 school year, the opportunity to roll over vacation days would be removed, and just unused vacation day on June 30th would convert into leave. And I will tell you, somebody had asked me, one of the board members said, okay, how many people really accrue that much time? So right now, we have one person that has 148 days, and we have 5 additional employees in the district that do have over 150 days accrued at this time. So that's 6 people in the entire district that have close to 150 days. And most of these, except for one employee, have been in the district over 20 years. And again, these are food service people, they're clerical people, they're custodians, and we even have a couple teachers that accrue that many days. But again, this really is affecting the 12-month vacation into leave. So again, even though, like I said, you have a couple teachers here. So the teachers, when they leave, they do get that same percentage of sub pay, when they leave, if they've accrued so many days as they leave. I've tried to explain it as I can. Are there any questions?
I have one question, sir. I looking up there, it says something about voluntary leave. So if they voluntarily leave the district, we still have to pay them for any time earned, right?
So basically, if for some reason somebody was terminated and they had that kind of leave, we wouldn't pay them.
If they determined, but if they volunteer.
If they volunteer, like they're resigning, yes, then we would pay
We
them.
still have to pay them.
Yes, ma'am.
So what if we just, for instance, we had a group of people that just resigned their position, and then we have to pay each individual person for time, or the time that accrued, right?
Well, again, it is 25, 50, 75, and 100% based on 5, 10, 15, or 20 years that they've been in the district. And then it is based on a daily rate, it's based on a sub rate.
But that's normal procedure when that happens in any job.
Well, I thought it was even new.
Well, I mean, to be honest, there are some districts that pay your daily rate when you leave.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, this is not exhibit.
No, the only thing that really what I'm trying to do is because again, these vacation days at the end of the year, not taking, we'll take starting this year, we'll convert those into leave days, so they just start accumulating the leave. And to be honest, in the last 2 weeks since the June 11th board meeting, I have signed at least a dozen, maybe more, requests to roll over days, and even many of those, there's going to be days, because they're not going to be able to use other days by rolling over 5.
Question. Well, is anybody not, is there, are they just choosing not to schedule vacations, or are they just trying to bank their stuff into leave? I mean,
Well, for one, because remember, prior to me even bringing this tonight, they don't use their vacation, at least. Nobody's trying to bank.
are they applying for vacation days and they're being denied? Or are they just not applying for vacation?
No, they're not being denied. We very rarely ever deny vacation. If the only time we might deny it, if you wanted to take like 3 weeks at a time, something like that, we're not going to allow that. Typically, we allow somewhere between 7 and 10 days consecutive. But we're not. Again, with a lot of the B&G folks, and sometimes technology and other people don't get comp time, and so they're using comp time, and they still can't use all their vacation days. And sometimes, to be honest, you just don't have time. I'll be honest, I've been in the district 7 years. There's only been 2 years I haven't lost days personally. And I know that some of the other EOP members have lost days, each year as well. But again, this is not just about, this is 12-month employees. And again, the majority of these, as I gave you that example, 2 of those 6 were food service, 1 was custodian, 1 was clerical, and 2 were teachers that, have accumulated that much time. But again, out of all 6 of those, only 1 person in this group actually earned vacation time. The rest just happen to accrue that much time to leave.
My concern is, I can understand doing it this year because of the circumstance, but the next year, I don't think that is the option. If they roll them over as the amendment, like 15 days or something like that, a limit to it, not just because I have a whole bunch of time left over, and I want to roll it over to leave, and it be a limit.
Like right now, the limit is rolling over 5 days of vacation, but it must be used in the month of July. And so what happens is you roll over 5 days. I already had 20 days. Now I've got 25 days. I'm having a rough time using my vacation as it is. So at the end of the year, I roll another 5. I get in that perpetual kind of cycle, always rolling days, but I don't use them. And to be honest, most people, and again, because I've talked to many people about this, and most people are going to take a vacation day. They'll take them no matter what, because they're thinking, okay, let's say, for instance, I just thought a number. Let's say a sub costs $100. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and stay, and I get 25% of sub pay, so I get, $25. Well, if be honest, if I leave, I get paid my full rate of $130 or $140 no matter what. So they see that they're actually making money by taking those vacation days instead of losing.
Yeah, but I understand that part. Is for the next time. Well, keep rolling over as we. I think that would be too costly for the district. It should be roll over. I mean, do the 5 days. I know that you're rolling those over, but the next year, you're saying to convert it over just to whatever they have left to roll over.
Right. Let's say, for instance, you have 8 days left at the end. I am suggesting we take 8 days of vacation to roll it into leave, if that's what they have left. If they only have 1 day, we roll over 1 day. And I will tell you, and just kind of think about this in the perspective, we have approximately 20% turnover every year in staff. So again, we don't have a lot of staff that do stay with us 20 years. And so this would be a nice way of rewarding those few staff that do stay with us that long as well. Because again, if they leave after 4 years, they get paid nothing. They lose everything. They don't get anything whatsoever because they don't even get that 5 year to get 25% of stuff paid. So this would be a way of kind of like, showing appreciation for the few that have been with us so many years.
Mr. President, I have some concern that, as Because I think that I hate to have a number of people who are refusing to take that and roll it over so that it can build up. And a cap to me makes some sense. But I think maybe voting on this now and then revisiting it, I hate to start something and take it away. That's painful. But I'm a little concerned about building this up over time, and
Well, and I do appreciate your concerns, and you know, as a compromise, if you will, 'cause I really don't want you to vote this quote down because it's so important for so many of our staff. Maybe you could amend it to do just like you said this year, and then we could revisit again later for next year going forward. I mean, I like again that way again. Everybody that I mean, I'll be honest. I found one person at the beginning of May that had 20 days left because they didn't have any chance to take their vacation days. So maybe you know you do it for this year. I don't know what that amendment would sound like, but you do it for this year, and then we can revisit this again maybe next year going forward.
Dr. Skinner. I would concur with them. And the only reason why is based on the fact that we spent a significant amount of time talking about the fund balance. And if I was to ask the question, how could this possibly, based on the 20% average, how would we project this amending this policy? How would it affect our fund balance in the aspect of 20% design? It would be something that we would have to address as we're trying to be fiscally conservative, but also taking into account COVID, and taking into account the current cuts that we've had, as well as wanting our teachers and wanting people to be able to feel some relief. I would agree with them.
So could we do something to kind of amend it to this is the vacation days left over the end of this year, roll over into leave, and then everything else stays the same, and then we can actually revisit it again next year if we like?
Yes. So, I think what you're currently is the most on the floor, correct?
Correct.
So, I think if that's your objective is to try and suspend the policy for this year, then the motion that you want to make is a motion to suspend, policy, is it GCP?
Well, it's not just suspend, we have to make sure that those days
To
do
allow.
convert into leave as well.
Right, so you're suspending the policy GCBDA to allow for, vacation days to roll over to leave for the 2019-2020 school year.
Correct.
That would be your motion.
I would so move, Mr. President, just like it was said.
Agreed. Is there any further discussion on the board?
If you have a second?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, call it to a vote. Vice President Kendrick,
Aye.
Director Brooks,
Aye.
Director Carter,
Aye.
Director McGee,
Aye.
Director Thompson. Aye. Chair votes aye, motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. And Mr. Clapmeyer has the next two items on the agenda.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board.
Evening.
Good evening.
Two items I'm going to present tonight are related to our collective bargaining agreements. Real quick, I'll try to provide some background info before I even go into this first one, especially for our new board members. The district, we collectively bargain with three separate units. We have AFT, which represents our clerical staff, our custodial and B&G staff, along with our paraprofessionals. That agreement was finalized and went to the board last month. The other two groups that we collectively bargain with are both under the HMNEA umbrella, Hickman Mills NEA Association umbrella. One of those is the teacher unit, and the other is the parents as teachers. And for those two groups, Dr. Skinner, myself, and district council all act on behalf and negotiate on behalf of the district and meet on an ongoing fashion throughout the spring with members of each of those units to come to tentative agreements to bring before the board. During that process, for our current board members, they'll be aware we have we bring updates and have ongoing discussions with the board in closed session so that everyone's on the same page by the time we reach a tentative agreement. And so the two that come before you tonight are items that we have been briefing the board on. The units have come to a tentative agreement and have ratified it with their groups. And the district has given the tentative nod that we will take it before the board to amend the agreements as described. So the first one is the HMNEA teacher unit. Right now, we are in a 3-year agreement with the teacher unit. It started last year, this current year, I'm sorry, was year 1. Next year will be year 2, and the following year will be year 3. During each of these next 2 cycles, so this year, next year, they're able to bring 2 items related to working conditions in addition to financial. So the 2 items that we came to a tentative agreement this year in terms of working conditions, one was language related to a defined workday. Our board policy does not set a specific defined workday, and so that language is that the defined workday will be no more than 30 minutes prior to the start of the student school day and no more than 30 minutes after the end of the student school day. And of course, the day may be extended as necessary to fill requirements of the position, such as if there's music programs, if there's parent-teacher conferences, if they have the parent meeting. It's understood that there's responsibilities tied to the teacher position that will require them to go outside of those guidelines based on the need. The other one is language related to providing guidance to unit representation being present when a formal reprimand letter is issued to one of the unit members. Those are the 2 working conditions that we came to an agreement on. On the salary piece, we agreed to a step, so all members of the teacher unit will get a step next year. In addition, we agreed to add a cell to the bottom of the master's column, the master's plus 16, and the master's plus 40 PhD column. So those 3 pieces were what we discussed in addition to, and if you look on your board docs, what I've uploaded for you, if you haven't had a chance to look through it all, just so you know, is the memo that you're looking at right now. Also, the new salary schedule is loaded. The amendment, which will have the board president and board secretary sign, along with the full agreement so that you all can be aware of what is already in the working agreement that we're adding. So the superintendent recommends approval of the HMNEA teacher unit agreement for the 2021 school year.
Second. Is there any discussion? Now, for your movement, is it for both?
If we can combine them, yes.
You want me to go ahead and do the PAT one also?
Can you please?
Yes, absolutely. It's ready to go. So with the parents as teacher unit, again, same format as we're in a current 3-year agreement with the parents as teacher unit. It's a small unit of only 6 members, or 5 members, I'm sorry, that we meet with. Their agreement allows them to bring 1 working condition and the financial each year. This year, they did not request. They had no working conditions that they wanted to bring to the table. So there is none present in this item, and there's none included in the amendment because they didn't request to talk about any. They did want to discuss the financial component. And so what we came to a tentative agreement on was those members receiving a step that are eligible, and then 2% increase to the salary schedule for the 2021 school year. So the superintendent recommends the approval of the HMNEA PAT agreement for the 2021 school year.
So both of these items have been motioned and seconded. Is there any further discussion from the board? And we will bring it to a vote. Vice President Kendrick. Director Thompson. Director McGee. Director Curtis. Director Brooks,
Aye.
chair votes aye, motion carries 6-0. Now moving
Thank you.
on. Thank you. Now moving on to discussion items, 6.1, MSBA delegate. On talking to the board and board members about their capacity, it was Director Grace who had stated that she would take on the responsibility of being the MSBA delegate, with Irene Kendrick, our vice president, as the alternative. My question to the attorney is, with that being decided, does not require a vote, correct?
I believe that's an appointment that you make as the chair, you know it's not.
Wanted to verify.
My presentation.
It is an appointment.
Thank you. So moving on to 6.2, we're talking about Board of Education committees, where again, I talked to my colleagues as far as their capacity and their interest. The one thing, starting off before we state what committees are available, I also have been able to talk to current interim superintendent as well as building. The thing that I'm going to suggest is that we currently have four policy committees. Within these four committees, one is policy, education, accountability, finance, and facilities. Looking at our plans moving forward as far as facilities and finance going hand in hand, as we've seen here even in discussion of what we've discussed, that finance often one hand has to know what the other hand is doing. What I'm requesting from the board is consolidation of these two, not just these two being consolidated as one. For finance and facilities is consolidated, but also the consolidation of the Education Accountability Committee as well as the Policy Committee. This request has been put in place based on the fact that the capacity of board members as well as the appointments considered. So at this time, the chair is seeking a motion for the consolidation of these four committees. So moved. Thank you. Is there any discussion? I'll call to a vote. Director Brooks.
Aye.
Director Carter.
Aye.
Vice President Kendrick.
Aye.
Director McGee. Aye. Director Thompson. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion carries 6-0 to have these these four committees consolidated into two that will be known as the Policy and Education Accountability Committee and the Finance and Facilities Committee. As far as the appointments were made, again, discussed with every board member to their capacity. For the Finance Committee, I would like to appoint Director Brooks as the chair, with the other members consisting of myself and Director Carter, who is also on the Facilities Committee. Upon the Policy Committee, I believe I would like to appoint Vice President Kendrick as the chair, with Director Townsend and myself serving also on that committee. Now, the reason in which, like I said, I discussed with board members their capacity as well as their interest, and this is the conclusion in which technically some consensus that we come to. With that being said, I'd like to move to items, future items. 7.1.
So
Yes, ma'am.
is this, Mr. McGee is not on one of the other?
No, ma'am, not based on the capacity of the board members. No, ma'am.
What, and Ms. Graves even?
Ms. Graves is serving as the delegate based on her capacity.
See that? This one knew that was on this. I didn't know he had the option of it.
It's not, it is based on the appointment. It's not so much in the sense that, because I want you to understand that almost everyone on our board has capacity and can be appointed. But the one thing I do not want is for those people who don't have the capacity to hold them to something that they cannot do. And understandably so, that this may be the idea of making somebody do anything on the board is not my intention, but to actually have those who want to be present in those spaces have capacity for it, but they are. Now, understandably so with Director Graves as well as Director McGee. And in the appointments that have been made, there is a possibility that when other board members cannot meet the capacity of their policy, of their committees, that they may ask them to step in if they have capacity. But the idea is that we work together collectively, not so much in the sense of responsibility, but availability, and availability to collaborate. So even so much as that being said, I want to ensure that people have their capacity and are addressing their interests.
My concern is, I mean, that's part of being on board.
Absolutely.
Serve as on a committee, to be, to make yourself available. So if you don't have the time, then why are you on board?
I think this is the best girl. I think it's a lot of work, and you know, and hey, I got a kid at home. I can say I don't have time either, but I do the work regardless. Nothing gets useless, so nobody can do the point. We know this is the work that needs to be done, very important work. And so if you don't have the time to take a minute to something else, then maybe this doesn't have to work for you. I just don't want to take it hard on nobody, but this is very important, and we have to work as a team. You know that this goes under that. This is a team effort. It takes everybody, every single board member. And I know we got families, we have lives, everybody. But we still have to do the work. It's very important. What if somebody just pick and change? And we as we do need a backup person. We do need somebody that's going to get it.
I agree. I hear your concern.
Yeah, and we as president having, I mean, we got one responsibility as president and then serving on PTA. Our job is to serve the children and our job is to work and do work. So everyone should be responsible for being one.
We're looking out for you too.
We all do. And I care for my family. So, yeah, I make the time. So we voted in to serve the board and to serve on the board and to serve our district and our students. That's what our job is. So my concern is that we need to have a board member on.
Just step a little history. We not always made this. Communities came up about 3 years ago. So it's a fairly new process. So for 30 some odd years, we had no communities. And until 7 years ago, the district was flagship without a community. The average time there's a lot of work to be done. Just because it's not been to not be able to access the power.
I think we're just getting that basically working on the team. Understand that then there was no community, but now there are communities. I mean, the point I'm just trying to make is that it's a change. And so I know that before you ran the board, you use that word. So, you know, we do have to use now, I think it's a team effort. We all need to try to make a part of it. And I understand, like you said, everybody did, but we did this before we got sworn in, we already definitely, you already been on it.
So point of order, just for a second. There's a little caveat. There's also a caveat in which where our committees are also will be considered ad hoc committees on the aspect of this body agreed, which we collectively talked about, also having a working session before the committees. The committees will take the place. Us meeting in the working session, the committee as a whole. And then anything that we are not able to discuss in that committee as a whole, within our working session, will then be taken to, those committees. Does not mean that those committees will be operational on a monthly basis. I understand that we do have issues that desire the full board's immediate attention. The idea is not to have someone be neglectful in their responsibilities, but for us to progress efficiently. The only reason why I was willing to sit on these two boards is only the fact of being able to investigate or be able to meet the guidelines that the committee's asked for, which is to be able to investigate, bring back items for recommendation to the full board again. But the full board has to have the decision to bring those items to the committees. In other words, based on 2018 in October, this governing body decided that they were going to make guidelines regarding the committees. Now, I can honestly say that the way the committees have been run have not been necessarily correct or efficient. We kind of had this discussion kind of play out here today, where we talk about recommendations and non-recommendations. The idea is that any item that goes onto the committee agenda has to come from the full board. So even as right now, as I make these appointments, there are no items on these committees, unless this governing body decides to put those items on the committee based on our ethics and deciding as a board. Now, what I will say is that if I make the appointment, if I would request the commission would be to be able to serve on the policy committee, I would like further discussion of that be based on the alternate. You picking your alternate if you serve on the committee. And being able to identify your alternate to the president so that when, if you are not available or you do not have the capacity, that we all people sit, that we have our backup ready and available. Too many times in the past, we also had committees that did not have people present. The idea is to remedy this. Now, if you wonder why I would put myself on both committees, because I know that I would be.
Right, but if we ask someone to take and I asked if they're not informed, if they're not part of it. How could they perform that? They're not.
Yeah, because we will be meeting as a board as a whole when the items are added to the agenda. So if, for technically, every member of this board should know exactly what is going to be discussed in those meetings.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I think your cup running over. It seems to me that you and the vice president will be meeting with the superintendent.
Yes, sir.
On an ongoing basis. That's one meeting. Then you're going to be on the other committees. That's very much. And then you got to prepare for these meetings. I understand what the director is saying, but I hope he will be considered and be on that committee because I don't want you to come up and say, well, I didn't get it done because this and this and that. And I understand. You got a job and limited time like we all have. And so I would hope that he would reconsider it and be on to do his best to serve on.
Okay. So, let me be frank. We will serve on that committee.
Can I change your mind? You did not change your mind.
I'll talk to the president. So, at this current time, I'll restate the Policy Education Accountability Committee consists of Vice President Irene as chair, with Director Townsend, Director VP as president. I would be seriously in the capacity of a member of the Committee of Finance, which is to be led by you, Mr. Brooks. And this Director Carter.
And if I might also say, we can still run a meeting with 2 members.
Absolutely.
That's a point.
Yes.
So we don't need an alternate.
Understandably so. Then I would suggest that the chairs of these two.
I don't see a lot of things on the committee where it's set up.
True, but you gotta do something that, you gotta be efficient. So we're being efficient.
I move for adjournment.
Well, we have two charters, sir. 7.1, regular session board meeting, July 16th, 2020, at 6:30. Is there any other comments to be made from this body?
Right now.
All right. The time is now 8:40, and we're adjourned.
Take a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I can. Can I please seek a motion for adjournment at this time? I'll say aye.
All right.
I have it. So, at this time, we'd like to adjourn.